So I've just got home from Stratford and I was at the game tonight with my dad and it finished West Ham 2, Wolves 1. Firstly, congratulations on another El Sacchio under your belt, Jules. And likely another last game to come. Probably the longest funeral march ever, it would seem. But hopefully, as it seems, we can turn some things around here. Look, a fairly pedestrian run-of-the-mill performance, really, it has to be said. Frustrating at times. But even that being said, that is still a vast improvement on most of the performances that we've seen this season, bar a couple of notable exceptions: Newcastle, Ipswich, Crystal Palace. Obviously, with Antonio not being an option, it was a bit of a concern before the match how we were going to line up offensively. It's a shame, really, that Füllkrug's not really fit, right? Because, the way we were playing tonight, this was the kind of game that was screaming out for a player like Füllkrug. A lot of crosses into the box, a lot of looping passes over the top. Really, pretty much everything was going to Souček, right? Now, great player, been a fantastic servant to us as a club. Obviously scored for us tonight, incredibly consistent. But, I really felt like tonight we really needed another target man, a different kind of option, like Füllkrug tonight. I think he showed against Leicester what he can do. I know that was only a very brief showing for him there, but I really feel like, the target man like Füllkrug up front tonight would have been an even bigger scoreline. Not really the kind of game that requires much speed from your front man, right? That's why I think that, tonight was sort of one of those games that you really could have benefited from. Just need someone clinical to target that isn't just Souček the whole time. I felt like we had largely a good game defensively. I was really concerned about Mavropanos being on the team sheet, especially with all of the rumours and whatnot going around with Todibo. But actually, he ended up having a really good game in the end. There was obviously a questionable, perhaps VAR decision that again went in our favour. We'll come back to a little bit later. First half, I think we were just missing a little bit of creativity in the middle. I think I'd have quite liked to have had Paqueta on in the first half, I think. Just that little bit of risk and reward that he brings. It seems a lot of time recently, it does seem to be a lot more risk than reward. But, as I say, I just feel like we were missing a little bit of his creativity tonight. Even though Soler, I think actually had a fairly decent game. I do really need to stop seeing Soler taking 25-yarders though. He needs to, if he's there to be a creative player for us, we need to start having him getting his head up and picking out the pass, not just, I've seen nothing from him to suggest that he can consistently start scoring from 20, 25 yards outside. So I don't know why we're using that as an option. It seems wasteful, basically, for me at least. It certainly seemed, from everybody around me as well, they seem to agree. Not that that's necessarily, a particular indictment on him, but, I just, it did seem really wasteful when we could have been keeping hold of possession and trying to find another way through. Look, the defence looked a lot stronger tonight. Not many sort of high quality chances for Wolves. I just don't think they offered really much up front against us. I think there were maybe a couple of moments that they could have capitalised on a bit more. But I think we were frustrating them, and I think that was quite clear from some of the VAR calls as well, and some of their reactions in game and post game as well. Obviously, we'll get to in a moment. One of the things I felt was a little bit odd, I suppose, was Bowen up front, right? I mean, we've done it a few times now. I felt like this game, I wanted to feel like there was maybe a bit of a change there. I would have liked to have seen Kudus up the top. I appreciate maybe why that didn't happen. Having Kudus out on the right is his sort of preferred position. I just wasn't feeling it at all tonight from Kudus in that area. It wasn't necessarily, I think, that Kudus had a bad game. It could have been on the score sheet twice, but it was offside both times, but we had the ball in the net. I haven't seen the second one. The first one was definitely offside, but the second one, I haven't seen it. But we didn't seem to complain too much. But as soon as Bowen moved back over to the right, it just seemed to unlock him. And that was in the second half, and I just felt like we were a lot more dangerous with Bowen on the right-hand side. But I just don't know that Kudus on the left is a good answer. Unless you've got someone like Füllkrug in the middle who's going to benefit from Kudus crossing in on his left foot, right? But yeah, I'm not sure what to do with Kudus. I think he's a great player, offers some real moments of individual brilliance. But I do think there are times where he needs to get his head up and look for the pass, which he's missing fairly consistently, and it can be quite frustrating. The second half I felt was quite a lot better. I think the game opened up quite a lot, especially after the goal. It just puts a bit of lifeblood into the game, right? And Wolves then got back up for it. I think up until that point, the game was pretty stale. It didn't feel as though anyone really particularly wanted to win the game. I think we're just trying to avoid the loss. So me and my dad, we were sat in the East stand, the Billy Bond stand, just sort of in the corner where it meets the Trevor Brooking stand. So we had a fairly good view of Wolves' goal, but yeah, we were quite far away from both West Ham goals, frustratingly. But I remember the Souček goal. It sort of passed me by. We'll see. This was, I don't know how many corners this was on the tally at the time. But it just kind of didn't feel like we were going to be doing anything from it. So I was pretty much rooted to my seat at that point. And then the next thing I knew, Souček gets up, heads the ball, nice and high, looping, quite slow. Didn't think anything of it. I thought that was maybe coming back into the box. And at that point, I'm thinking to myself, from my view, Souček's the only one who was going to get on the end of it. He already has. Who's going to finish it? No one. The next thing I know, everyone's up around me, and it's a goal. great header, great direction on that, really clinical. But if I was a Wolves fan, that kind of felt like a really slow, agonising kind of goal to concede. Though I have to point out, because as I got back in, I've just managed to just catch the highlights just quickly on YouTube, and it looked like a quite a good like block there from Mavropanos and who was it? Mavropanos and Kilman. So that gave sort of Souček that opportunity to drop back and get the free header. So, I mean, I'd like to think that was worked upon. It came off well, but ultimately 1-0, and injected some life into the game. But we really needed a second one to kill the game off, and obviously that didn't come. We had the VAR call for offside for Kudus. And I mean, that had to have been. It was such a long VAR call for what most people around us were saying that's offside. We were pretty clear that was offside. And then there were a couple more VAR calls of the night that were fairly quick in comparison to something that to everyone else kind of seemed pretty clean cut. So. Yeah, VAR's a strange one, man. I just, I understand the necessity for it. I understand the blue sky, the requirement. I just don't feel like it's anywhere near the level of its potential. It's taking way too much time out of the game. It's sapping the life out of everything. I mean, I guess the next one's the Bowen goal. Bowen goal, I thought was an incredibly well taken goal. Pretty textbook Bowen, to be honest. It was great for him to hold up the old Antonio shirt as well, which I've got to say, actually, I think that Antonio was would have been proud. I don't know if that's the right word. I don't know. I think wherever he is at the moment, if he was watching that, I think it'd have been it was heartwarming to see the level of love for such a well-regarded player. Tonight in the stadium, there was a number of chants going on. Obviously, everyone wearing the Antonio kit for the warm up. I think was a really nice touch. Obviously, really hope that he has the speediest recovery that he possibly can, and hopefully that's not the end for him. I'm sure it's not. But yeah, it was very much the goal that we needed at the time. The Wolves goal, as I said, we had a fairly good view of it from where I was sat. I didn't see much wrong with it. It was a really well taken finish in the end. I think, if anything, if I was being picky, which I would say maybe Alvarez was probably caught ball watching a little bit and got sucked into the play, and just missed the run. But not a lot to be too angry about there. I just think it was a well taken goal, and ultimately it doesn't matter in the end, right? So I don't know if anyone's seen this, actually. I don't know what was on the broadcast or anything like that, and most people had gone home by this point. But there was a little incident, little scuffle at the end of the game, where what's his name? Lamina, bleached blonde hair. Anyway, he went up to Bowen at the end of the game. At least Bowen went up to Lamina at the end of the game to shake hands, and and he just shrugged him off. And to be honest, that should have been the end of it. Bowen should have left it alone, but tensions were high, clearly. A lot on the line for both teams. And Bowen went back in to, try and understand what was going on there, why he'd been shrugged off. And he basically wrestled Bowen to the ground, threw him to the ground by his shirt. And then there was a big fray of people in the centre circle, basically. And yeah, even the Wolves coaching staff came over to trying to calm him down, putting their heads together on him, and it felt really aggressive. Actually, it just kind of felt like they were stoking the fire a little bit. I've got to say, I think that was probably the longest I've seen any player remain on the pitch, even after a game like that, in such a fury that he didn't want to clap the away fans, and I think Todibo just wouldn't leave him alone. I don't know if they've got some kind of history or something like that. I don't know, but yeah, I mean that guy was not calming down anytime soon. I'd have hated to have seen what the back room was like. Because he was absolutely furious, but yeah, it was just a strange little outburst at the end there. But I mean, look, at the end of the day, when it matters so much to you, tensions get high, and yeah, I think it could have been managed a lot better on the field at the time. But overall, wherever you land on the Lopetegui question, tonight was a valuable 3 points that distances ourselves further from the danger zone at the bottom, which is obviously very welcome. Personally, I think I've seen enough to believe that he isn't the right man for the job. And whilst tonight was a better showing, it did very little to convince me otherwise, especially considering the level of competition that we were playing tonight. I really felt like we were playing against a very downtrodden Wolves team. I think we'll probably see some announcements in the morning from Wolves. Like most things in life, it's all about timing. Do I believe that Lopetegui is the right man for the job? No, I don't. But do I believe that right now is the time to relieve Lopetegui of his post? Well, with all things being good and fair, I think tonight has probably bought him a little bit more time to fight.